Hello, everyone, and welcome to fourth teaching week in the Social Network and Enterprise module. So we hope you're getting along well with the module. The feedback that we get from students is pretty positive, especially because due to the fact that we've provided an extended amount of information, both for the tutorial brief, but it's also for the assignments as well. So hopefully everything is going well with you. The feedback is also positive in regards to the enjoyment the students are having doing this research, which is always a great thing to hear. So please keep them coming. We'd like to hear your views and thoughts on how you feel that the module is going, but also, most importantly, how you feel that your research is going. As we would like to talk about building a social presence this week. And the idea this week, in the week 4, is to try and dig deeper into what are some of the processes and what are some of the practical examples that we can follow to be able to build a strong social presence online. And you'll see very shortly, you can actually start slow with your own personal brands before you're moving into other business brands that you're going to build presence for, right? So without wasting too much time, let me share my slide with you. And essentially, I love this quote because every time we talk about technology, we tend to forget that what seems impossible today may very well be possible tomorrow. So, and that's mainly due to huge amount of innovation happening in the world of, in our case, in the world of social media, social space. But not only that, huge amount of innovations are happening in different parts of technology which have an impact on social media, like artificial intelligence, machine learning, and things like that. So it's really important to keep in mind this quote as you move along, not just with this module, but also in the marketplace too. So how do we go about building a social presence? What are the key things for us to keep in mind, and how do we go about doing it? All right. So what are the things that we would like to achieve with this session today? Well, first, we need to talk about what's your aims. Again, if you don't know where you're going, how do you know which route to take? So you really need to know what you're aiming for, specifically what your aim in regard to social space. Second, we'll be talking about improving digital footprint. So what's your existing social media presence? And of course, how can you go about improving that? And again, you can start with your own personal brand before we move into the social media, right? Into the business space. And the next one is, what's your online engagement like? Again, you can start from your own engagement in social media. What's your online engagement at the moment and how you can improve it, okay? And then we'll be talking about engaging, listening, and listening some more, because the fundamental thing about learning, not just how to use social media, but learning anything in life is to also listen twice more than you speak. So essentially, be able to take in more insights by listening a lot more and then engaging when you've got yourselves updated with the information around you. And then, of course, the next bit will be talking about creating viral content and how do you go about doing it. Now, as you know, all these companies that are introducing products and services into the marketplace using social media, they're actually introducing that through content. So it's incredibly important that you learn how to go about building content for social media. And if you remember from week 1, we recommended that you yourselves, with your own personal profiles on social media, go about doing it. You go about creating content and then experimenting with content creation, because is what fuels social media. Content fuels social media. And of course, unless you go about doing it and using the time available to experiment with it, you'll never learn. And of course, all of the requests that you're going to get from companies out there that want you to build a social presence, you will be required to do that through content. It's not like a magic touch where you've got these brilliant ideas on how to promote an actual product or how to launch an actual product in the social media marketplace, right? So the best thing you could do is to experiment in building, developing content, whether it's written content, multimedia content, visual, whatever it is, mind map, infographic, whatever that you can think of in whichever platform you want to do that. It's really critical that you do that. And in fact, it's probably one of the best things you can learn throughout this module in terms of succeeding with social media. Because all those ideas that you might have to help a brand succeed in social media will have to come down to the type of content that you're going to develop for that idea to be promoted out there, of course. And let's just get into that. So the power of social networks. Well, when we talk about social networks, we need to keep two key components in place. And that is the fact that social media help us with future growth of the business by combining the social networks and social connection with social relationships. So if you got some good social connections, right, and of course some good personal relationship with those connections, that derives in the growth of business, which is what some brands do really well. In other words, if you go about tweeting something around your favorite brand who does really good job on social media, they will send you a very personal response to the request that you have provided. Therefore, enabling you to connect with them in a way, in such a way that you will have a good feeling about being part of that company or using their service or using their products. In fact, nowadays, I'm sure you've noticed that there are several senior executives and even CEOs of the companies that actually take on the role of customer support, right? A good example could be Elon Musk, that sometimes he actually himself responds to some of the tweets that customers have about their Teslas, right? And again, it just shows that building that relationship through those social connections will derive to the future business growth. And not to forget the fact that in regards to Tesla, since we mentioned it, they actually don't do any marketing. And I'm sure you can watch all around and look all around. You won't see billboards, you won't see banner ads of Tesla anywhere. Why? Because they believe that the product is the marketing. The product needs to be so good that you don't need to market it. And of course, I'm sure that in the near future going to change, but essentially, that's what their belief is. Okay, so now why do we care about building a social presence? The big question. You don't just build a social presence because everybody's doing it. Okay, you don't just build a social presence because the company that you're competing with are doing the same thing. You build that because you've got specific aims and goals and ideas that you want to achieve. And we've just mentioned some in here to give you an idea about what we're talking about. But it could be anything from blog promotion, skills promotion, Facebook page. You want to promote your Facebook page. It can be promoting a product page, promoting multimedia, brand awareness, promoting a Twitter profile, promoting a LinkedIn profile, promoting a community that you're about to build. So it can be anything that you want it to be, but you've got to know where are you aiming for? What is your aim? What are you trying to get to, and why do you want to build this presence? You don't just build the presence again just because you want to look cool. You don't just build the presence just because you want to be there. You build the presence because you've got a name that you want to achieve. And that's why it's always a good thing starting from yourselves before you, let's say, want to build up a presence on social media. You want to find out what is it you're aiming for? What is it you're trying to get out of it? And the moment you decide which is the aim that you've got and what you're trying to get out of it, that's when everything else will follow. From building a special presence in each social network to develop actual content that is going to be useful for each of these individual social networks, it starts from the main thing, and that is the aim. What is your aim? What's your target? What are you trying to achieve? And then everything else will follow. Okay. And that is something important to keep in mind as you start thinking about building a successful social presence. Now, Solis got this good quote, which is really, really useful for us to keep in mind. Social networks are indeed a hub for your digital identity and activity. Now, you might think that's not true, okay? Why it is a hub? It is a hub because do you know where you find the clues about this hub? That is in every banner ad, billboard, or even TV ad or anywhere else, you will find that Facebook, Instagram, and other social networks have got their own logos, their own business profiles of those brands in those logos. In other words, whichever ad is being published out there by brands, those brands will add their Facebook fan page or their Facebook or the Instagram page to that ad, whether that ad goes on TV or billboard or anybody else. And that is to tell you that the hub, before you even think about it, the hub to digital identity today is really are these social networks. Okay, so in other words, whatever is happening around social media, whatever is happening around advertising online, everything goes around and around with a focus on social networking space. Okay, now some of the things that we all need to be avoiding at all costs, and that is to have profiles that look like this, whether it's business personal profile or a business profile that is not what it should look like. And of course, if you really want to succeed with social media, you've got to give everyone a reason to be in your social profile, right? And you don't give them a reason if you don't have a picture, you don't have a full name, you don't know where you are, who you are, what you do, where you work, and so on and so forth. And so it's really important that the starting point is to make sure that your social profiles are fully completed. In fact, a really nice, neat tool that LinkedIn does at all times is that they show you how much your profile has been completed successfully. In other words, if you have not added all the insights about you and about your profile, LinkedIn will say, well, you've got only 85% of your profile completed. If you added interest, education, jobs, and so on and so forth, it would get to 100%. And that is really important. It is important that you fully complete these profiles. And remember, you need to do the same thing for yourselves and the same thing for the companies you are working for or the companies you plan to work for in the near future. In other words, building a social profile online is not hugely different from what you would do for your own individual brands to those online. Now, in terms of online engagement, how do we go about succeeding in building a social presence online? Well, we've got this framework that we presented to you to give you an idea about how you go in regards to developing a social presence online. Well, the first and fundamentally the most important thing is to listen. You've got to listen really well. Again, listen twice, speak once, right? And you, and that way is all beneficial to you because you're really going to get a lot more before you're going to say something. Okay, so you will listen really well. You'll take a note of what's happening on those discussions on social media. Then you will start to connect with people after you understood what these discussions on, let's say, Twitter hashtags or like, trends on Instagram and so on and so forth. You would listen actively and learn before you connect. Because once you listen, you know who to connect with. Once you connect with those people, you go in the next stage, which is about learning. You want to learn what to learn. What are the key things you're going to learn? Once you've learned, you then what you do, you go about improving, which is the fourth stage. And then the last one is the publishing side, right? So it takes quite a while before you're actually into the stage where you can publish something that is relevant, that is useful, and most likely is going to gain attraction from people, okay? And of course, we talked about this a long time, but to be able to get people's attention, you've got to be really good at listening, connecting, learning, improving on all those three, and then publishing to get people's attention. Okay, so you don't just publish anything without having all those three elements into place. Okay, now some of you might wonder, well, how do we go about doing this? How do we go about building a presence online? Well, I'm sure you've heard this many times in the module so far, but experimenting is absolutely critical. Now, this is a very practical topic. This is a very practical subject, and this is a very practical module. And as a result, it's really critical that you experiment with social channels. In other words, it's excellent to do the reading because you gain all these ideas and thoughts that you put into your papers, right? But you've got to also put your hands on things and get the real feel of what it's like to write a post, edit a post, publish a post, promote it, engage with it, monitor it, and then improve and purpose the content maybe for other social networks as well. Because if a piece of content is very successful online on Facebook, there's no one to say that you can't repurpose that content for Twitter, for YouTube, Instagram, or anything else. And in fact, successful people that do really well on social media repurpose their content that has worked really well at all times. Okay, so the first thing to experiment with social media, you've got to start publishing. There's no question about it, right? And we've been through the model in the previous slide, but in terms of publishing, the things that really work best are the interesting, funny, thought-provoking content that is really going to get people's attention and people to click and engage with the content that is being provided. Second one is tracking. Now, once you've published content, the next one is to do what? Is to track and monitor how well that content of yours is doing. And we'll be talking about social media monitoring tools next week as well, but it's really critical that you learn how to use these tools so you can track how you're doing online. And if you can't track, it's like not really knowing what's happening. And tracking is like checking yourself in the mirror before going outside. That's probably the best explanation I can think of in terms of tracking. The next stage, was the third one, is about engaging. Now that you're tracking what's happening with the content online, the idea is to engage through what? Through contribution, discussing ideas, the support to those people that have got questions around your content that you published, right? And then the fourth stage is the one which is critical about you on learning, assessing and learning through conversations, discussions, ideas, suggestions, and other comments. In other words, assess what you've done in each and individual steps before coming to a final conclusion. In other words, what you want to know is really to get as much feedback as you can and also learn for and gain new ideas that you're going to develop going forward in your endeavor to do well on social media. Now, the thumbs down go to things like this. I'm sure you've seen them many of examples before, but there are loads and loads of people who post things that don't make any sense, like, retweet this and you win a free iPad. Retweet what is this? Is there a link? Is there a photo? Is there anything else? It doesn't really say much. Artie, if you love our product, where is the product? What product? Where? And so on and so forth. So these are examples of people who think that building a social presence is just saying something out there for the sake of saying it. It means that they have not followed any of the steps we mentioned in the actual frameworks before. Now, we're building a social presence to build some strong relationships because those relationships most likely are going to drive good business for us. Okay, and at the end of the day, relationships are the new currency of the social economy today. It's another very powerful quote by Solis, because it's really, really important to keep that in mind. And why is that the case? Well, think about this. If your shop, think about this. Um, if your shop next door was to close down, would it be missed? Okay. Would you miss the guy that worked in that shop close by in your neighborhood? Okay. If the answer is no, there wasn't much of a relationship between you and that shop. But if you will miss the guy, if his shop was to close down, it's because he has given you something to build a strong relationship with you. And the moment that he's given that support to build a strong relationship with you, what happens? You give him more business. Okay? I'm sure you can relate in examples in your life, whether it's your local garage where your car broke down, or you just wanted to get input from the guy working the garage. And if he's given you the support for free without really asking you to, bring your car to his shop, so that he can fix it for you, before you realize he's given you something, but then he's left you to decide where you want your car to be serviced. Now, of course, for most new cars, you get them to your dealers and so on and so forth. But all the cars, and if you've got a local garage that really cares about you and it really helps you every time you need something, well, when your car needs servicing, you know where that's going to go. It won't go anywhere else but to the local guy who's built a strong relationship with you by helping you out. And in most cases, those people did not do that because they wanted to win business. They did do that because they wanted to help. But guess what? They're going to get business because now that they helped you, now that they were useful to you, automatically in your brain, that's a trigger that says, who's the guy that helped you the most when you had a trouble with your car? Well, it's John next door with his garage. Guess what? You're going to end up going to see John and taking your car for servicing there. There's two big things around content online. The content, to be successful online, the content has got to be remarkable, and that remarkable content is going to help you increase your reputation online. And again, whoever you're following online, you will know that they publish so much content, so then their reputation has gone over the roof. And again, you have all these people who produce content massively, and that content is really engaging, and therefore it helps them build a reputation. That is exactly the same thing you would need to do for a brand too. Now, the brands build successful presences online by developing viral types of content too. Now, virality essentially is a virus that travels around the internet and really travels really fast. And again, thanks to 6 degrees of separation, before you realize, that piece of content has gone from 5 to thousands of people in minutes, right? And if you remember when we talked about 6 degrees separation, when you look at the first level of your separation between you and other people, you friends, and then 6 of your friends with another 10 of their friends, and then friends of their friends, before you realize it's only Monday, and that video, that piece of content has traveled to thousands and thousands of people, right? I'm not going to play these videos because you can look at your own time, but it's really worthwhile to look at these YouTube hits and then learn how they've done really well and what you could benefit from them. Virality of content, we talked about this already, but is a content that spreads really fast over the web, sometimes faster than the actual virus or flu in the real life. The content itself can be an article, it can be picture, video, tweet, whatever it is, but it needs to be funny, controversial, informational, so then people feel an urge to share it. Now, I'm sure you've been through this so many times when you've seen that piece of content, you thought to yourself, my friend needs to see this. And that's what we're talking about, virality, because that is a trigger that the content brings to you. And There is a lot of research around this, which you can read for yourselves as well. But we're sharing some with you. For instance, Berger and Milkman, 2010, from Wharton Business School, carried out a study called "Social Transmission, Emotion, and Virality of Online Content." The research involved studying every article in the New York Times for over 3 months, a period of 7,000 articles. And what did they learn from it? And what did they decide that helped the content go viral were these triggers. And those triggers meant that the positive content is more viral than negative. The key is level of excitement, how much of level of excitement that brings to you, whether it's positivity or positive or negative. Positive content that inspires surprise and amusement is really something that gets shared a lot. And again, I'm sure you've done that. We all done it. And then negative content that inspires anger, anxiety, also, we've shared that. Content that causes sadness is less viral. Secrecy helps content spread fast. Now, secrecy, again, is the idea that, it's only me knowing this piece of information, but nobody else does. And in fact, there is a lot of research on this if you want to learn more about. But the idea of secrecy used in the marketing today is very, very clever. In fact, there are lots of restaurants around the world, and their business is based on secrecy. In other words, they don't have any ads, they don't have any name outside of their restaurant. Everything is so secret to the point that only people who eat there and connect with that restaurant are those who will even be allowed in. Now, you might think, okay, well, who can get in? Well, people that get invited from other people do have a chance to get in. But before you realize, the idea of secrecy alone in the marketing perspective plays a huge role, because just the fact that I know a secret that you don't makes me quite in a valid position to be in. Before you realize, I start talking to my friends about something that I know and the others don't. Before you realize, that secrecy becomes a recipe to getting people's attention, right? So, and it's true, it works. And I've been part of some of these restaurant chains, sometimes for studying these phenomena, if you will. But the idea is this: that the moment you try to keep something secret, that's when it starts growing even faster. People are sharing hope on their social media to, again, for their social standing, to get something tangible in return, or simply help others. How can you create content that fascinates? These are some of the triggers that your content needs to have. Passion, trigger fast connection with other, inspires close relation with customers. Alarm is the instinct, well, we all have used to keep us alive. Mystique is all about holding something back and not revealing it. Power, sometimes people do not want to be in control. Prestige, rebellion, trust comes from familiarity, and predictability as well. These are some of the triggers that help the content go viral. Now, examples of viral content, again, I'm sure most of you seen Charlie Bit My Finger. Really funny, really interesting, very engaging, of course. So why did this piece of content go viral? Well, there's probably over 800 million views at the moment. Well, let's just look into it. Let's just analyze it quickly. It's a positive piece of content that provides amusement. People shared it because it made them smile and think, oh, that's cute, isn't it? Okay. Charlie's older brother, Harry, reacts cutely on the pain that Charlie inflicts upon him. In fact, we find it funny that his brother hurts him, right? And again, you can play the video for yourselves, and you'll really enjoy it if you haven't watched it already. Secondly, there's a trust. So it's a safe video that can be enjoyed by everyone, and nobody will be offended by it. So if you do a search also on YouTube, you'll see how many results you get around this piece of content. Of course, that became an app, okay, and worked really well for the family. And then, as of, I think, as last year, apparently the parents have now earned just close to 500,000 revenues through YouTube and press and TV and others as well. So that has had a pretty good positive impact in their lives with that piece of content. Now, how to increase virality of your content? Well, identifying trending topics is always a good idea, and you can do that through real-time search engines such as Collector, OneRide, Google Alerts, or any other platform like Facebook or Twitter trending or Instagram trends or whatever they are. So you can see what's trending and then try to jump in that trend and gets people's attention through the content that you're providing. Wondering what your topic next week will be is the idea of starting planning, understanding your audience, who it is, understanding who your customer, where your customer hang out, defining types of messages you want to communicate and the best medium to use, establishing types of interest for your message to trigger, making your content, publishing, sharing, and measuring it some more. So this is something that we'd like you to play with next week, because as you know, we always introduce the topics a week before the actual tutorial topic, so that way you can spend some time into playing around with the content and playing around with something that essentially fuels social media. And if you could rip off the content from social media channels, they would be boring and they'd be useless. Okay, so it's really important to do that. And of course, most importantly, have fun while doing it. Right. So what do we talk about today? As we get into the end, we talked about these key elements. We talked about importance of aim, why it's important to aim, to know where you're aiming at, importance of improving your digital footprint or starting from scratch if you don't have, understanding what's your online engagement like and what improvements are needed, approaches on engaging, listening to be able to build a social presence, importance of building content, specifically viral piece of content to succeed with your presence online, and ultimately practicing with it yourselves. I hope that was useful. Again, if you've got any questions or anything else or comments, please leave them in the comment section below or in our discussion in our tutorial time as well. So on that note, thank you very much indeed, and have a great week.